Title: Female doctor risks her life to save poisoned president, CEO unexpectedly proposes to her. A night that changed everything. Dr. Evelyn Carter had spent her life fighting for others. As one of the country's top emergency physicians, she had faced countless crises, but nothing had prepared her for the moment she was called into the private wing of St. Augustine Hospital late one evening. The emergency. President Jonathan Reed, the nation's leader, a man both revered and criticized, had been poisoned. The toxin was unknown, and his condition was worsening by the minute. The moment Evelyn entered the room, she felt the weight of history pressing down on her. The president lay unconscious, his breathing shallow, his skin pallid. Secret Service agents flanked every corner, their tense faces betraying their fear. Outside the hospital, the nation was in chaos. News channels speculated about an assassination attempt. Crowds gathered, praying or protesting. She took a deep breath. This wasn't just a patient, this was the President of the United States. The fight for a life. Evelyn worked tirelessly. Every second counted. The medical team was stumped, but she refused to give in to fear. She analyzed the symptoms, cross-referenced toxicology reports, and then made a shocking realization: the poison wasn't just lethal, it was airborne. Which meant she was already exposed. A normal doctor would have stepped back, called for a replacement. But Evelyn wasn't normal. She looked at the president, the man who had dedicated his life to his country, the father of 2 young daughters. He was more than a leader, he was a human being who needed her. Without hesitation, she pushed forward, devising an antidote from scratch. The process was grueling, trial after trial, moment after moment where the president seemed to slip further away. But she refused to let death win. Then, a pulse. A breath. His eyes fluttered open. The room erupted into action. Secret Service agents called for updates, nurses rushed to monitor his vitals, but Evelyn? She swayed on her feet, dizzy. The poison was in her system too. She collapsed. A life saved, a life at risk. For 3 days, Evelyn drifted in and out of consciousness. The hospital had done everything possible, but the antidote she had created wasn't designed for her. She had no idea if it would work. She woke up to quiet murmurs and the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor. As she blinked against the sterile light, she realized she wasn't alone. President Jonathan Reed sat beside her, dressed in a hospital gown, looking weaker but undeniably alive. His eyes, ones that had commanded a nation, were now filled with something she didn't expect: gratitude. "You saved my life," he said softly. She gave him a tired smile. "It's my job." "No," he said, shaking his head. "It was more than that. You risked everything. No one would have blamed you if you had stepped back." She sighed. "And if I had, who would have saved you?" A long pause. Then, a smile broke across his face. It wasn't the smile of a politician or a leader, but of a man who had seen the depths of kindness. "Dr. Carter," he said, leaning forward, his voice steady despite his own weakness, "I need to ask you something." She tilted her head. "What?" He exhaled, as if steadying himself. "Will you marry me?" A proposal no one expected. Evelyn thought she had misheard him. The president, one of the most powerful men in the world, was proposing. "Mr. President, you're not well," she said, trying to make sense of it. He chuckled. "No, I'm not. But this has nothing to do with that." His expression turned serious. "You are the bravest person I have ever met. You didn't hesitate to save me. The world needs people like you, and," he hesitated. "So do I." Evelyn's heart pounded. This wasn't a grand romantic gesture from a storybook. It was raw, real. He had stared death in the face, and in his survival, he had found clarity. She opened her mouth, but he held up a hand. "You don't have to say anything now," he said. I just needed you to know. Not because you saved me, but because I've never met anyone like you." Tears burned at her eyes. She had spent her life giving her time, her energy, her heart. And now, someone saw her. Not just as a doctor, but as a person. She didn't know what her answer would be. But as she lay back against the pillows, a small smile forming, she realized something. Sometimes, the greatest miracles aren't just about survival. They're about discovering who we are meant to be. And maybe, just maybe, she was meant to be something more than just a healer. Maybe she was meant to be loved. The power of one choice. Evelyn's story became more than a headline. It became a testament to the power of compassion. People across the country were moved, not just by her bravery, but by the idea that love, in its purest form, can arise even in the most unexpected places. She hadn't just saved the president. She had changed the course of history, with one act of courage, one moment of selflessness, and one heart that refused to give up. And isn't that what being human is all about?